Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. As we allow a heap of our registrants in. Registrants, is that a word? I'm not sure, but I'll go with it. We are going to allow all of you that are registered for this masterclass in for our hour of power. Thanks for joining us. Let's say we'll give everyone another 30 seconds or so to come on in. We knew there was a lot of people waiting in the room, so that's good. If you're joining us, thank you for joining us. We'll kick off in about 20 seconds or so. I think we'll kick off.
Sounds good.
We waited for a few extras, but that's all right. That's good. They can join us. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome to our 2025 Masterclass series. It's the third in our series. It's hard to believe, as we're sort of going into Easter, it's ridiculous to think we're sort of mid-April. And, we're following on from our AI Unleashed Cutting Edge Insights Masterclass last month. Although today we're going to add a little bit of that AI. We're going to focus on marketing, digital branding, AI, look at some AI tools, and more importantly, I'm going to tap into the brilliant mind of Emma Reeves very soon to where you should be spending your marketing dollars. So it's going to be a fantastic hour ahead. Stay with us. For those of you that don't know, my name is Paul Jansz, and it's fantastic to have you all here. Now, this educational series is brought to you by Profitmaster Global Outsourcing. Premium offshoring solutions. That's what Profitmaster does, giving you guys access to more than 170,000 degree qualified professionals to build and grow your remote team. So if that's something you're looking forward to doing or you're adding to, please make sure you speak to Profitmaster about that. Today's topic, we're talking about digital branding. We're talking about artificial intelligence or AI. We're talking about marketing, industry trends, industry changes. And with that, I've got my brilliant mind joining me this month and special guest, Emma Reeves. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Paul. How are you?
I'm excellent. I've had this little something going on in my throat for the last few weeks. I think it's the autumn weather in Melbourne, but you know what? I'm okay today. It wasn't as good last week.
Got you on a good day then.
You got me on a good day. That's right. Now, before we kick off and we get into all of we've got a lot to get through. So again, to all of you that are joining us, thanks. We're going to share a lot with you. This has also been recorded, so we'll have the recording up on our YouTube channel probably in the next 48 hours, or it might not be, considering tomorrow is Good Friday. But we'll have it up there soon. So we've got a lot to share. Stay with us. We'll have a section at the end for questions. So if you've got anything that springs to mind that you want to ask Emma, please put that into the Q&A and I will allow for questions at the end. Now, Em, before we kick off, how about you share a little bit about you? And, you are one of our brilliant minds for the month. So tell us about how your mind works.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to jump back on. I do love our masterclass, and there's so much happening in the world of marketing at the moment with changes in AI and different types of content being shared and changes with Instagram, new platforms. So yeah, there's always a lot moving and it's a ever-evolving landscape. So yeah, happy to jump on and share some of our insights. So I own Excelerate Marketing and started this agency about 5 years ago. We're 2 months away from our 5-year anniversary. And before that, I had been in marketing for about 7-8 years. And for me, digital marketing and marketing strategy needs to be at the forefront of every type of business. We predominantly do work with service-based businesses. So we have clients who are lawyers, accountants, wealth management firms. I work with buyers agents, real estate professionals, and we help those businesses who have a brand and service differentiate in the market and then tap into the channels that really help kind of move the needle and being able to connect with more customers, more leads, drive more awareness for their brand. So that's what Excelerate Marketing is all about. I've got a small team with me in Sydney. We're based in Martin Place, 60 Martin Place, if you want to come hang out for a coffee or a glass of wine. We very much pride ourselves in being great connectors for our clients and, connecting with the wider business community. So you'll often see us at different networking events, Chamber of Commerce, and some other different networking events across Sydney and Melbourne, a Profitmaster lunch perhaps. So I like working with businesses of all sizes, but tend to work with, small to medium businesses in different consulting capacities and digital marketing services.
Brilliant. Now, tell us a little bit about how your mind works, because I think, it's for I'll say young, because I'm not as young as you. For a young female in today's world, you do have a brilliant mind that
Oh,
thinks
thank you.
very marketing strategically. I know even when we
Mm,
caught up a couple of months ago, I think we caught up for a wine, funnily enough. Wine's always involved, isn't it?
funny that.
And I still remember it was we were talking about financial planning at the stage, and
Mm,
there was a certain demographic that particular individual
mhm.
was searching for, and you brought a different thought process into it. And I think that was fascinating for me to sit back and listen to that. So tell us a little bit about how your mind works, and that'll give everyone online a good feel for what they're going to get today.
Yeah, sure. Look, I think like most, I like really direct and results orientated answers. Like I go straight to the point. People don't want to waste time. People want to know. People want information immediately. We want the answer. And so I try and go straight to the designated point of the problem, or try and uncover something that's going to really move the needle and move it quickly. We're called Accelerate Marketing for a reason. I also personally throughout my life have always moved at quite a pace and been told that maybe I burn the candle at both ends and that I should slow down. And so I do always move at speed, but I very much prioritize efficiency. And I think a lot of people appreciate that, especially in business. If we feel like we can help someone, we'll be honest about it. And even in that initial meeting, we'll often provide some solutions and suggestions that they haven't thought of. And, that value and that consultation we provide, I get a lot of satisfaction and enjoyment out of, sharing those insights. And if I can find $1 million business solution for a client within 10 minutes, and that's an awesome opportunity. It could be a channel they haven't tapped into, or it could be a customer group they've never marketed to, or cross promoting different aspects of their business. We really want to uncover that. So if I recall the conversation correctly around financial planning, I think I had actually mentioned that there's an underserved market of potentially, the mid 30 to 40-year-olds. And I actually was at a networking event and met a financial wealth management planner and reached out to them and perfect prospected myself and said, I'd love to know more about, how you work, and, do you do a plan up front? Do you take management percentage? Is there a fee? And I just got a completely AI generated response. It was so not personalized, not tailored to me at all. And then the biggest thing was there was absolutely no call to action. It was just like a thanks very much,
Yep.
and
Yep.
completely closed the door in that conversation. And so the first thing was he didn't even identify that I could even be a possible target, that I may have an investment property and have a business, and there is a portfolio there that I'm looking to expand on. And so sometimes I guess it's getting businesses to understand, firstly, identifying key customer groups, but then expanding out and thinking, are there niches within that? And are there sectors that maybe my competitors aren't targeting, which could provide me a point of difference?
Yep.
And so this particular conversation, was personal to me. I felt underserved, under-recognized. Where do they talk about financial planning and wealth management and progression, for the 30-year-old, and the 30-year-old female business owner, to even go even more niche than that. And so don't close yourself off to different possible, targets for your business, because it could be an untapped opportunity.
100%. And that was one of the things that I thought about. And this is the, I know we're talking about marketing today, but I always see marketing as a pull through to sales. But
Mm,
when you're in a sales meeting, one of the critical things in sales is to listen. So we have 2 ears and one mouth. That means we need to listen more and talk less. And it was a classic example. I still remember, because I remember, again, we'll give a bit of an example to everyone online. So we I think Emma asked the question, what's your target audience? Now,
mm,
I think, Emma, you just said it then. You're a 30s female entrepreneur, business owner, you've got investments, and you went straight into, you're right, the AI generated spiel off, oh, well, our target market is your 65, your person that's retiring. I think that was similar along the
mm.
lines.
Yep.
And your comment was, let's try that again.
Yeah,
It's
maybe I
like
did that. I don't
you are
remember.
spot on the money. It just goes into this auto as opposed to let's have a look at the person I'm talking in front of. They're not
Mm,
retirement. They're not in the 60 plus bracket. So
mm.
why are you auto generating something as opposed to thinking about how you're going to tailor that to a solution to the person that's in front of you?
Yes, and just on that with this kind of auto generation and systemized approach, we just started working with a client. I won't mention who they are, because we are now in the process of improving their marketing, so you can check it out in a few months' time. And they have just been in this repetitive fashion of posting content. There's no strategy behind it, but it's also the same content across LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. So they haven't differentiated the content per platform. So the first layer of it is identifying who your customer is. The second layer is when you start expanding out your marketing channels into different platforms, which customers on which platform, layer that again with what do they want from the content across those platforms. Do they want to be educated? Do they want to be inspired? Are they then now ready to take a call to action? So you've got to layer the process as you would then consider, them going through the buyer journey. And so, yes, identify your customer, but then think about, what do I need to communicate to them at what point? We had another client we were speaking with this week, talking to them about the right time to offer a demo. And so some businesses offer it as a lead generation tool, top of funnel, and they use it to attract customers in and brand awareness and, jump onto this, demo session. But then a client who has maybe 10 to 15 really warm leads could run a much more impactful session tailored to those customers as a nurture tool rather than a lead generation tool. So, thinking about what your customers need at different points, we're jumping ahead into marketing channels and strategy, but, it's relevant because again, it speaks to your customer. On that first interaction, they may not be aware of your brand or your business. And so you're educating them, you're helping them profile and say, yeah, we help people just like you because we know you have this need. We're solving this problem. We provide these outcomes. Here's all our social proofs and testimonials and awards and all those great, amazing things to create that awareness and impression of your brand. And then as they move through, they want to know how you help. They want to know in which ways. What does your team look like? What are the outcomes? What's the process going to be like? Is it going to be painful? Is it going to create joy and excitement and give me time back with my kids? Like, where is it really going to create impact for them?
Yep.
And so, yeah, you want to get that customer right at the start because then talking about how you can cruise around Australia in a caravan, isn't something that I want to do at the moment. So, you've got to speak in the right language.
Agree totally. And that was one of the things that sprung to mind straight away. And it was, yes, while that could be, and I think you mentioned, and I saw a podcast you did, was that yesterday or was that this week?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I just do these things from time to time and they come out.
Getting
It was a couple of
around.
weeks ago. Yeah.
But one of the things that stood out to me was when you were talking about, and we could have financial planners on right now. So
Mm-hmm.
you're right. You could have identified your perfect client as that 60 plus retirement market. A lot of financial planners do that.
Mm.
You also got to think about exactly what Em said before. What other markets could you target? Is there a wealth accumulator type of package for your 30s to 40s?
Yep.
No, they are
Definitely.
going to get to the 60s, but they are not there yet. So you've got to be quite strategic in your approach, not just be quite robotic to how you're going to deal with
Mm.
it. So you've really
Yep.
got to just think about how different strategies work for different people. And I think
Yes.
that was the one thing that I walked away from that. And I did shake my head a little bit. Um, but that's how we learn. Okay. So
Mm.
we don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's the great thing about being in business and being an entrepreneur. At the end of the day, trial things, make mistakes and learn. That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Let's get
100%.
into some brand identity and strategy stuff because I want to tap into your brain onto
Mm-hmm.
let's start to define. Let's talk about how we would define a digital brand strategy identity and how that may differ from, let's say, our offline presence.
Yep. So in terms of your digital strategy, and the first thing that people think when they think digital is their website, and they're not wrong to think that. A website is one of the first things. It's the first, search listing for your brand term, followed by then your social media channels. And so your digital branding and your presence is something that you can largely control, but there's also areas that you can't. So, I'm talking about negative Google reviews or other review platforms where it could be from an ex-employee or it could be from a previous client or someone who's had a bad interaction with your business. And so control as much as you can, but also focus on the channels that are really going to drive impact, create impact. And so, we're talking there about your website. Maybe you have some different landing pages, there's different groups. Some businesses go too far down the route of over customization. And then you go onto their website, and we have one client we're helping with at the moment. Their navigation is extremely complex and has probably 15 to 20 options per customer group. And now, whilst they offer all those things, how can you better personalize that experience? And so, when you go onto a website, financial products and lending do this very well. Are you a homeowner or investor? Are you looking for a boat loan or a car loan?
Yes.
And so you can go down the path in terms of the UX and the navigation and the customer experience to get them to self-identify who they are, what group they're in, or what product or service they're looking for. Or you can look to, create a more sophisticated navigation and layer it. But the big thing is to, keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. There's a lot of, sales methodology and psychology behind how you communicate in your marketing. Some say communicate as if you're talking to a 15-year-old. Some say younger, some say older, but, ballpark in that realm. I looked at a website the other day, and the first, text, above the fold was just so complex. And I had no idea what they did. At first glance, I had no idea what their product was. Something to do with technology and learning and being able to talk about your product simply, especially in a digital format, and having that consistency across every platform is like a number one thing to work towards for a business owner.
And let's delve a little bit into that consistency. Let's say, how do you ensure your brand is consistent across the digital channels? We've got all the different social media channels. We've got, we've got the websites that you just spoke about.
Yep.
We've got email. Is there something that more businesses are using for greater success? And again, depending on if you're selling a product or a service as well, doesn't matter. Or how do you create that brand consistency?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'd bring it back to good cadence. So obviously, if you engage a marketing professional, the first thing that we do is come in and do a brand audit, and we assess the effectiveness and the content across different channels. We then look into the, the audience like I touched on before, and the purpose of those channels, and really, what the content is we need to be sharing, and how do we want to use those platforms effectively. And so for a regular business owner, if maybe they've been a few years in business, they haven't updated their website content for some time, it's just creating a spreadsheet and framework to list out every platform you have. So from Facebook to Instagram to Twitter to, you might even go as far as listing out the kind of key directors or stakeholders of that organization and their LinkedIn pages, auditing Facebook pages. I know some people, they don't go back through and maybe there's some information or content on there not relevant for, their role anymore. And so doing a bit of an audit is the first place I recommend starting. Okay. So list out every social channel you have, audit all the platforms. We've worked with a client for a couple of years now, and they have an Instagram page that someone somewhere along the business set up, and they wanted to delete it, but then they no longer had access to it. And so jumping on an early intervention is key, and creating a good cohesive system around how those platforms are set up, under which email, and using a secured password manager. All of these things in terms of compliance are important if you can get them right at the beginning, because it makes it so much easier when an agency does come in to be able to get access and take charge and make changes, and to optimize those pages.
Yeah, that's a good point. And would you we were talking about the ideal client, and we gave that example of the financial advisor planning firm where there may be that retirement market, and then you've got, let's say, the 30 to 40 package market. Would you suggest you do different strategies or campaigns based on Facebook is probably an older market, TikTok and Insta are probably a younger market?
Yeah.
Is that something that we would have to consider as owners?
Yeah, certainly. So, definitely looking at the analytics and looking at, male, female percentage, looking at job titles where you have it, looking at, interest and other demographic data or geographic data that's relevant for your business. So getting as much as possible across the different platforms. But then, more broadly, looking at your engagement rate of the content. Every content piece that you put out should have a purpose. Is it to inspire someone to take action? Is it to connect and get someone to engage with something? Is it to just promote your business, which is okay to do? Self-promotion is good. What is it that you want that person to take from it? And then I think if you apply that logic into everything that you do, then the business owners and the employees of your business who are maybe managing your social content will apply some more thought and thinking behind what is the intended action I want to take from this. So why am I doing it, and what's the action I want to have taken? Okay. And then you start to understand how people are engaging with these platforms, interlinking content as well, like especially on YouTube. We've just started working with an awesome buyers agency, and we're creating videos across their podcast. Then we're creating short videos, and then even shorter videos, and then linking them all back to the main podcast to be able to, that's the main action we want people to take. We want people to consume the full content, but we're going to provide it in bite-sized chunks at different times because we know that that's how they consume it.
Yes. Yes. That's something that I've only learnt probably in the last 12 months as well, where all our content used to just go up online and sometimes it's a bit of a tick and right, done. But it's not how people consume content. And this is probably where the important part comes into it. It's not worth, like, for example, we might put the full recording of this particular masterclass up on the YouTube page. It's not how people consume content anymore, is it? It's so you're basically breaking it down into those bite-sized chunks of, I call it 6 minutes, let's say. So breaking it down, and you might end up putting the full version on there later, but break it down because that's how people consume content nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we have a client today at 2:00. They're running a webinar for their client specifically. So we haven't promoted it across socials. When you think about what the purpose of the webinar was, it was a market update around the economic conditions, what's happening globally, overseas, upcoming elections. And so the pure agenda of it is to educate their customers because there's been a need and interest. And so, we were considering, when we send out the recording, do we do it today before the long weekend, or do we wait and upload it on, a particular platform, embed it on their website? And we made a decision that we need to send it out to them today because the main objective is getting this information to them. If they're not able to register, providing that in a least polished form, but providing them, giving them accessibility to it. We are absolutely thereafter going to put it on their website, write a blog article, do little snippets, and share the message where appropriate across different platforms. But the main objective of this was to create value for their customers, provide education and content readily. And so why would we not make the link just available this afternoon, the cloud link? And then we're also going to ask for a survey. So there's this balance of responsiveness and timeliness of content, especially after you go to an event. Do you post the next day? Do you post a week later? Have you missed the boat? Everyone else has posted about it. Should I still post about it? People have this, this fear and this hesitancy sometimes with the timing of it. And, you just have to go back to, what's my objective? Do I just want to talk about this? If so, just post it. Do I want to share this recording? Yes, great. Share the message. And I think people get caught up on, presentation value and production value, which is definitely important, but weigh that up against what the objective is and what the overall outcome could be, and then make a decision from that.
Yeah, fair call. And I think, you're right. Is there any rules around what's considered too much posting? So I went to a networking lunch a few weeks ago. Shout out to Olga, and she introduced me to someone, and she said, "Now this person, PJ, posts more than anybody that I know." And it's like, and I,
well, who's in their network?
Hey, what was that?
You might be the biggest poster in her network. She might not have connected with a more responsive and consistent sharer of content than you. So, it's relative, I guess, to her network. If she's got 10,000, followers and connections, then, that wouldn't be as diluted, like, on your Facebook channel is, I guess, what I'm saying. And I had this, actually, someone said the other day, it's like, oh, the same person posts content all the time. I was like, but if you had other people on there who also posted a high volume of content, then that would be diluted and you'd have a bit more of a mix. So yes, you need to be respectful to people's feeds, and you will start to see if it isn't well received, then your engagement will not be good.
Well, that's true too. Yeah. No,
so, base it on, don't be offended.
I use LinkedIn more than anything, and if anything, I don't know, I'm trying to get off the others. But yeah, look, because it's more from a business perspective. So, but is there, what's the importance as well nowadays of storytelling and maybe your digital brand strategy, making sure that, you know, at the end of the day, people love hearing a story. We've been telling stories. We tell stories to our kids when they're babies. We're always storytelling. How
Yes.
important is that in a digital brand strategy?
Oh, so important. You know, you want to get the brand story right. So when we're talking about brand story, we're talking about the vision of the business, talking about the identity of the business. So why do they operate? Where have they come from? We just helped a client early this year that's their 10-year anniversary. And so, we were given the opportunity to tell that story. And we decided the best way to do it justice was to do it in a timeline. And so by doing that, I interviewed the CEO and sat down with him and got a real good understanding that really the evolution of their business and the success of their business is down to strategic projects that they've picked up. And once they've picked up a project, they've set up an office and then employed a senior person in that office. And then if you look back over the 10 years, you see that pattern across all the different states. And it's a really nice story to tell because their capability, they offer a service and they offer one that's, of high value and government projects. And so large tenders and, long buying cycles. And so being able to demonstrate a pattern of reliability and of strength and structure and of consistency with staff members and, this kind of upper management tier, which is, very well trained and skilled in their area of work, will help them market their business and position their brand stronger. And so it was a really nice exercise to do. And I encourage anyone who's had a 1 year, a 3 year, a 5 year, a 10-year milestone to look back reflectively on some of those key triggers and points that has helped tell your brand story and helped brought you to where you are today. For us, we started 5 years ago, as I mentioned, and we've had the same idea in our business around marketing strategy at the core and then being a full service digital agency. But how we've evolved now is I have much more capability in-house and I'm utilizing less designers or content writers. We're doing a lot of it ourselves because we have the skills and capability within our business. And I also have the structure and more stability. Whereas being a startup and a growth business in year one, I don't want to employ 3 people with having 3 clients. That ratio doesn't work. So, I'll bring contractors and the expertise and, COVID opened up a whole possibility of, great, well-trained, onshore or offshore resources because there was a lot of people out of work. So I had a great market to tap into from a skill set and a resource capacity. And then over time, started employing people in those specialist positions in our business. And so going back to, what's your story and why is it important is because it helps motivate your staff. It helps tell that picture to your clients. It helps create a point of difference in market. And so, it could be reflecting back. It could be, looking at your capability. It could be going through an exercise of getting some testimonials from clients, whatever helps pull out the nuggets of gold that differentiate you and help tell that story with justice.
I think that's the great thing about, from a marketing point of view, for those of us that are considering starting out, we're talking about sort of Profitmaster from an offshoring point of view, but if you had to outsource a task, marketing's a great task to actually outsource because you bring in experts like you to be able to do what we're talking about, because some minds don't work like that. Some minds are very, and I think to challenge the status quo of what you've done for the last X amount of time, to bring in a new mindset to look at different things, I think is outstanding. And we've all got the ability to do that depending on what our budget may be.
Oh, definitely. Look, I think, the term, fractional CMO, we get called an outsource agency, a marketing consultant, a brand consultant. Sometimes I'm a personal shopper, depending on the day. And so, I read an article not long ago where we talked about, the value of, outsourcing different functions of your business. And we absolutely work with businesses who are, in that startup or growth phase and haven't had a marketing representative in their business. We also just started working with a client who's had someone in the business doing it for 5 years, but hasn't really had the capacity in her role. She's been tied into other things. And so hasn't really had a chance to look at it properly. That's 5 years in. This is a very successful company, over 40, 50 staff, different locations, 3 different arms to their business. And so it doesn't really matter at what stage you are in your journey. being able to outsource different components of it, but doing it with the structure and the strategy in mind of, who your audience is and, what are your intentions for the business, how many qualified leads is, a realistic amount for you each month. Could be 5, could be 50.
Yep.
So looking at all these things before you even think about outsourcing, actually going into it with a bit more of a plan and intentions and objectives to understand, is it just social posting I need to outsource? Or do I actually need to relook at, some of the identity of our business or our sales process, how we propose, we get all these great leads in, and then we have a terrible proposal deck, which creates mistranslation of message and therefore that trust is not carried through that conversation. Maybe it's the onboarding, the clients at what point really do you see that drop off? And so, yeah, when we're talking about, the nurturing of those customers and coming through the funnel, we want to think about from the first interaction they have all the way to the last, and then thereafter in the service.
That's a good point. So if we're to break a bit of that down, because we've got to get to quite a bit today, what would be the top 3 things or top 3 objectives when building a digital marketing strategy that you can share with everyone online?
Yeah, sure. First thing would definitely be around your target audience.
Okay.
And so even just today, I had a meeting with a client and we were writing some new content for these different persona pages for their customers. So we've decided that there's been basically additional content that's been needed for these different groups. And so the intention is writing this content and then upload to the website. We've got a whole wireframe and structure to this. But that content I could not have written without this persona document to tell me what do they care about, what are their pain points, what are their aspirations, where do they live, what services are they most interested in. And so I wrote that content using the tone of voice of the company and utilizing the services that they offer. But the other layer that I needed was really around the personas, aspirations and feelings and emotions and what they care about.
Yep.
And so that type of document, it's a you call it an avatar, you might call it a persona doc, or your whatever it may be, but it's your customer personas and audiences. Being able to define those in great detail will then unravel a whole host of ideas. Maybe you need to improve your content, maybe you need to update your website. And so that's the first one that I would recommend, is establishing your audience, but on a deeper level, identifying what are the drivers and motivators for those audiences to purchase your service or product.
2 more.
Structure and strategy is with what you're doing.
Okay.
So whether we use ClickUp for our project management, ClickUp, Asana, or Monday, or Trello, or a spreadsheet, tracking what you're doing and what those results are. You can very easily employ, a more junior person in the business to assist with this, but providing them the template and the guides of, this is what we want to do. We're going to do this for 2-3 months, and then we're going to refer back and see what success we had. Yep. So giving the structure to record the, the results and the socials and the posting, or, maybe you're going to an event. How many connections did you make from the event? How many days was it? How many follow-ups did you have? Again, looking at mini sales funnels and processes. And so having good structure around what you're doing, why you're doing it, what the results are, will allow you to then report back and see if it's successful and something you want to repeat or not.
Is it important from a digital branding perspective, and when you're looking at, there's social media and email campaigns and there's SEO and all of this to stay on top of, which can all drive your brand, but is it important to have followers into all of that to then try and balance marketing from that as well, whether that be organic or paid marketing efforts?
So you're asking if you need lots of followers on your pages to get good results with paid ads?
Yeah. Someone asked me that the other day. I said, that's a good question, but I don't believe it's essential.
It's not essential. Some people do look at validating the company. So it's more engagement on the ad itself. So if you get lots of negative, reactions, I mean, that's kind of changed a little bit now. But those negative reactions will deter people. Some people look into the company, but they look at a lot of things. They look at how the ad's been created, what graphics is, capturing the attention, what's the brand name, and what's the colors and, some of the aesthetics behind the branding, and does it resonate with me? And then, looking at maybe they might do some additional research. So we know people go and have multiple touch points. And a good tip actually is, if you're in your Google Analytics, is to have a session and have a look at the journey of your customers when they come to your website. You can actually look and see what platforms they've been to and how many times they've been back to those pages before they actually took an event and an action. So if there's anything in Google Analytics that you should do, is definitely looking at your traffic by user and by page, but having a look at the journey of those customers. It will open your eyes to understand that they might have gone to 5 different places before they came to you.
And is that analytics, is that free?
Google Analytics, yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So there's more complex tools, but that's a really good one. And yeah, just to look at those journeys. I mean, as marketers, we get drilled about understanding customer journeys and workflows and processes, but analytics is pretty easy for the average person to use with a bit of basic training. So going back to having a look at those type of structures and processes are good. And whether it's 50 followers or 500 followers, it's not really going to move the needle on your Instagram pages. So if you're driving people to your page and your page has maybe 5 followers, and your content, your feed doesn't look aesthetic and isn't engaging, those things play into it. So just looking more broadly, again, going back to consistency, your branding, can they see themselves as a potential customer of your business? Those type of things are what's going to matter to them. Is the ad catchy, creative? Is it going to stop me in my tracks scrolling through?
And are you still seeing, when we're talking about, let's say, going to the paid marketing efforts, is Meta still the number one to work with?
I mean, it really depends on your business. And Meta is great because it does give you a few different options, being able to customize your audience. It's pretty easy to set up. We've really improved the audience process and setup. Like when I started the agency 5 years ago, if anyone wanted to run Meta ads and Facebook ads, agencies were charging upwards of 3, 4, 5 grand to just even do a setup. The costs have come down sufficiently because the process is easier. So it should be much more affordable than that to set up. Now, it does depend how many ad iterations you have and, if you have the reporting and the tracking set up. So there's other aspects to it. So Meta is great. But again, going back to, where your audience is, you might want to try, YouTube sponsored ads. Or if you're looking at, local events, you might want to sponsor a local event and look at it from a brand exercise and brand awareness. So it really depends on the type of customer you're trying to connect with, the buying cycle as well. So, if you have a product or service, like if I'm selling this water bottle, I'm not going to wait 6 months. If I need a water bottle, I'm going to purchase it today. Whereas if I'm looking to buy a laptop, then I might be in the consideration phase and not yet ready. So then I need to be retargeted. So therefore, those type of ads are really important to keep me nurtured and keep me on the hook. And so again, it depends on your product and service and the buying cycle. And that's why creating different types of ads. So creating video ads is really important in educating someone and really explaining your point of difference and what you're offering. So that's why Meta can be really great for that. But I've seen lots of success on Google ads, looking at specific areas. So say, for example, you've got an accounting firm and you operate in Ballina and you want to go really niche into that particular area. Google's a great way to do that. So if you have a particular service, you operate in a particular area, or there's that niche, then utilizing Google ads for that standpoint will help you, really reduce your cost per click and lead.
And is it whether it's Google or Meta, like the back-end analytics to actually understand the return on investment, that provides you with a fair bit of data, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And, we work with clients, we work with other bigger agencies as well, where there's like a larger spend, being able to try and connect your CRM back into the ads is the ideal way to do it, but it's not always possible. And causes pain and friction on both sides and frustrations. So it's just about regular cadence and reporting. I mean, the numbers, for this client with the buyer's agency, we just started posting their podcast for them. We see their website traffic go from here to here. Now, we're not posting on their website. We are posting their podcast on YouTube. We're cross-promoting it across Instagram. But then people are curious what the business is all about. So we can see the percentage of new users, we can see the 400% increase in traffic. And so you want to look at broader metrics outside of also just the ad performance. So the engagement and the click-through rate and, you know, the cost per ad, return on ad spend, all of those are great to look in platform.
Yep.
But then look on a broader experience, like what are customers saying about this? What's this doing to our web traffic and our inquiries? What's this doing to our followers? And so again, you know, if you have all of your statistics and channel mapping done, then when you're reflecting on these exercises, you can start to see the trends and what campaigns are working best.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. That's probably the key thing, isn't it? What campaign is going to be working best?
Yes.
You know, if
Like
you,
testing, you know, A/B testing,
yeah, yep.
different campaigns. We did a campaign back end of last year. We were testing male versus female imagery. We were testing stock versus business related imagery, different headlines. The big thing for A/B testing is test one thing. So you're either testing a different call to action or you're testing an image. Don't test both because, you know, it is pretty straightforward message, but, you know, just to iterate, you
Yes.
do want to work from a base level. So if you're thinking about if you should go out with an offer, what's the base level marketing campaign? And so I do see this, you know, over the last couple of years and in different roles that I've had, we've never run paid ads. We want to go out with a $500 gift voucher. Like, okay, that's probably going to work really well. Firstly, have we defined the right audience? But then when you run brand campaigns, you don't actually know. You've got an unrealistic expectation around how the brand campaign is going to work. So we do suggest walk before you run.
Yes.
Even if it's only like a 2-week or 3-week testing period, you know, running some, you know, stock standard brand ads in market to get a feel for, you know, some basic level changes before you level up and do offers and campaigns and seasonal campaigns and all of that. So yeah, it's good to test, but try and create a, you know, a base level or, you know, zero to work from.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So let's shift to some of the industry changes, trends.
Yep, sure.
There's been a lot probably over the last 3 years. What have you seen in terms of the biggest changes, or in, let's say, digital marketing or branding? What's some of the changes you've observed?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's been a huge change and shift with creative. I mean, you know, a couple of years ago when there was a higher rate and adoption of Canva, that really went gangbusters in
Yes.
COVID and opened up to a much broader audience than just creators and designers. And so, you know, we're working with clients, I'd say almost 30-40% of our clients now actually already have a Canva account, opposed to 4 years ago, they didn't even have that or know that. So there's a shift and a wider adoption of certain tools, which makes it easier for us to collaborate on and to really hit the ground running with certain businesses. With that as well, you know, you used to have to wait 3 weeks to design your own logo. And, you know, the cost was a couple of grand. So the changes with creative and design and especially branding has really helped the small business and the startup, I would say, in being able to conceptually design something to go to market with. It may change in, you know, 2, 3, 4 years time, or in some cases, I've heard of business owners being like, oh, my daughter did it 10 years ago and they've still got it on their website. So it does provide more accessibility. So there's great tools. There's one called Looker, which is a tool that you can use, and you can also mock up like different promotional merchandise and letterheads. And so you don't have to wait 3 weeks and pay 10 grand for a full brand pack. Now, I will caveat this with, you want to make sure that, you know, if there's any relative trademarks or colors, and if your competitors have different colors, and you don't want to get the wrong logo and be stuck with it for 10 years. And so there's definitely, you know, a place for brand designers, and I don't see that changing, but it's probably a, you know, a lower market where there's this efficiency and need and you know, low budget, where they're able to, you know, look at even conceptually doing something which then helps in the brief to a designer to be like, look, these are some options I've mocked up myself, rather than trying to pull it out and be like, oh, is that a tiger or a plant? Like, I don't know. So, you know, it helps in that conversation. And so I feel like the gap and the divide is changing between, you know, business owners and creatives, is even just using that as a demonstration tool, you know, helps in bringing it to life.
Yeah.
So that's one area for sure.
How important is, because I know we went through this trend maybe, and it's still happening now, but I don't know how big. It's definitely was big, but influencer marketing, you know, sort of video first strategies, interactive content. Is influencer marketing still as big as it was and getting bigger? It seems like it is, although I'm trying to get off socials, but still big.
I mean, in my opinion, the best influencer you can have for your business is you. So,
Yeah.
obviously in certain other businesses, the CEO or the director isn't always forward facing, but there is so much trust and authority and representation from the business owner. You can do that on scale. The head of Instagram's on stories telling you about changes.
Mm.
He doesn't have Kylie Jenner or someone else talking about Instagram. He's talking about Instagram because
Yep.
he's the best person to talk about it.
Yep.
So, when you talk about, brands and Nike or Red Bull, of course they're going to have athletes, but their brand and sharing that message, they almost want to demonstrate, they're demonstrating impact and change and more aspirational feelings from their product. And so they're utilizing influencers to be able to deliver that message. But if your message is really about capability and expertise, then you've got to think about who the best person in the business is to deliver that. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's you,
Yeah.
and there's this complex where, business owners, like, they don't want to self-promote, or they think they're not the best person to self-promote. Or I had a question asked, am I the best person? Am I self-promotable? I was asked this question. I was like, 100%. You have to believe in what you do, but being able to articulate that and to face that in a public forum is, quite confronting. So one is just acknowledging, like, I'm telling you, you are the best person to influence and to promote your business. Or it could be other senior directors or managers in the business. For a technical business, it could be your lead engineer or your lead scientist. So think about what messages it is and then who the best person is to talk about that, because it could just be you.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Let's shift gears to, I think last month we shared a lot in this artificial intelligence space, and I see a lot of AI now coming into the marketing space, the branding space, whether we're using the chat GPTs of this world or whatever it may be. But you okay to go into what you see and how AI is enhancing or influencing, again, using the influencing word, some of the
Mm.
digital branding and marketing efforts that we've got across the board?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, my mind is ticking over on a few things. Even an example this morning, I have a staff member in here with me, Sienna, and she had asked a question. And so I just brought ChatGPT up on my phone and asked it and gave her the response. And so, I use that in a really simple way. Rather than looking online, we could spend 10 minutes talking about it. I was like, here you go, here's the answer. And so how businesses use this, different industries are going to have different adoption rates. We've used it, in, ideation and content writing and planning and strategic, being able to compile, say we've got 20 different documents, being able to condense those into a summary for us, really creates some efficiency in the process and gives us depth of content and ideas quite often. In editing as well, there's been a lot of improvements. Creative design, we've seen, the Barbie dolls and the Kens using ChatGPT. So I think that's going to come a long way. And so for businesses, even tools that you're using, like we use Grammarly and we have that as like a tool that sits in the background and just, checking spelling and punctuation. Even those tools have AI in them. So there's a lot of things that you're using that has an AI embedded. It may not have, .ai at the end of it. But there's a lot of improvements in technology. And so I think, what we have done in our business is we've actually created a marketing channel in our Slack, which is, marketing and tech updates. And so anything that we see that we want to explore as a business, we're putting into that channel. So we have a designated source to capture all the amazing ideas and systems and, new apps that we want to trial. And then we have someone appointed to be able to, review those. So I think that's a big thing is, embedding it into your culture and encouraging innovation and sharing innovative ideas,
Yes.
testing new systems, but, again, having process around that. So having some accountability and some structure, but, just really creating a good process to be able to explore it.
Are there tools for now? Even I know whether I'm sure everything is going to become AI driven pretty soon, but are there tools out there to, we spoke about posting, even if we're starting off with simple content, whether it's across the different platforms, are there tools that you can use nowadays to then post all content across all platforms?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we've got a tool that we're using called Metrical. So we've used in the past, we've used like Loomly and like, sorry, yeah, Loomly is the one that we've used. And we also post like through Meta Business Manager, we can post, you know, stories and you can leave first comments. All of that's great, but it is a bit more advanced for a regular business owner, especially if they haven't tapped into their marketing.
Yeah.
So if you haven't established what your key content pillars are, who your audiences are on each platform, which platforms matter, which ones don't, where's the baseline in terms of your engagement and what you're then testing and iterating on, you then go down this really dangerous path of just like sheerly automating and not actually reporting and, you know, being mindful and conscious about your content, which is then what can cause fatigue or, you know, distrust, or worst case scenario, like negative feedback and reviews on it.
Yeah.
So automation is great, but you want to get your strategy right first to make sure you're automating the right things, would be my advice. So yeah, there's different tools out there. Simplify your platform. So if you're not getting any engagement on Facebook, just stop it for a month and just, you know, stop some of the noise and focus in on particular channels that are performing well. And, you know, in that case, if you are just posting on LinkedIn, just schedule on LinkedIn. You know, it allows you to tag people. It allows you to visually see what it's going to look like.
Yes.
And so I am pro automation, and we need to do that on scale for the clients that we work for, but I'm also pro platform. So it depends on how much content you're posting.
Yeah, and I think nowadays, even just using the, you know, the different, certainly what I found out from Michael on our last masterclass was the different, again, AI tools that are out there. You know, I'm only probably touching the surface with regards to what I use the chat GPT for, but, you know, the ability to ask it to write a blog, the ability to ask it to create a marketing one-page plan. You've got the ability to these things that are very quick nowadays, and then you can then customize that to your needs. So I think that's what you're trying to say, isn't it? Make sure you know it's not so robotic as what we said before as well.
Yeah. The output's only as good as the input.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spot on. Any other tools that you know that are coming to the market that we should be aware of?
Oh, I mean, there's a few that we've seen that we're testing. Maybe watch this space. We might promote it on our socials if that's what people are interested in. Yeah, a couple of design tools, and I mean, there's change. I will say that there's a big change with search. And so we are seeing Google search traffic change because AI search traffic is increased. And so I would say definitely over the next 12 to 18 months, there'll be changes in the SEO and Google search landscape, because not everyone's just looking for information by searching for it.
Yep.
You know, going back to Yellow Pages days, yes, I am aware of Yellow Pages, and I am that old. You know, the way people search for information and the way that search engines have evolved. Now we're moving into this era where people want information through AI. Like today, I use voice to text ChatGPT to answer a question of a staff member. I would typically have Googled that. And so you want to start creating content, especially across your website, and prioritizing where people are going to search for you and where people are going to search for that information.
Yep.
And we've got one of our clients who's getting a lot more traffic now, actually through AI platforms, because their content's being referenced as a credible link.
Yes.
So yeah, it's not particularly a platform, but it's just the overall evolving landscape of AI in search, and the way people are searching for information has changed and will continue to change.
Yeah, and I think even the what's the Google AI? I saw something the other day where you can actually upload content and they can create an interactive, call it an interactive podcast, audio only, and it was outstanding. I was blown away that it was two people having a conversation like we are right now, but it was AI generated. And I
So
just
again, on the purpose of that, so
oh,
the dangers are, if you're just writing content with AI and everyone else is running content with AI, it equals out. You're not going to get ahead.
that's true too.
And so speaking with SEO specialists and developers that we work with, they, you know, the sentiment is the same. The systems are smart. They know when the content is being written by AI.
Yep.
And if your neighbor next to you is also writing content from AI, then neither of you are going to be prioritized and awarded, or, you know, yeah, you're basically not going to get any advantages or gains from that.
That's right. That's right.
But if that content is a blog going on LinkedIn, it's an article turned into a social post, then the value of that is getting people to read it rather than it sitting for your website for SEO purposes.
Spot on.
So it's not to say it doesn't have advantages, but used in the right way. If you're using AI to write all your blog content, don't expect to jump up in the rankings. In a simple form. You need to look at still engaging marketers and content writers and developers and SEO specialists to be able to really move the needle, especially with all the changes coming with generative AI and search.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. Now that's probably where you need to just fully understand all of that, don't you? Because there's, like you said before, positives and negatives to all of that. And it's important to evolve and make sure we're constantly evolving to understand.
Yes, definitely.
Yep. I might go to some questions. If anybody online has got any questions, let me check to see if there's any questions in there now. There are.
Oh, yeah.
I asked about this. This is good. Excuse me. How can a brand stay relevant in a constantly evolving digital space without losing its core identity?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, first you've got to establish what your core identity is. So knowing who you are, knowing what your brand stands for, and what are the pillars of your business which really uphold your service or product in the market. It is an evolving landscape. And so, I would say stay relevant and stay up to date would be looking at the content that's across your social channels and platforms. So staying relevant as well. Look, a really good tip here is making sure that you're in line with what your customer expectations are. So we help clients quite often do customer surveys. It could be a survey at the end of a webinar. It could be a quarterly survey or a yearly survey. It could be a net promoter score survey for your customers or your employees of your business. So if you're interested to stay relevant and relatable, I would say always getting some qualitative or quantitative feedback is super important, and sometimes an undervalued exercise to do in a business. And that will help make sure and instill that your content and your marketing and your branding is on point for what your customers expect.
Yeah, well said. How can a smaller business build a strong brand presence without the budget of a larger competitor? And this is always an interesting one, isn't it? Because again, different budgets come into play, don't they?
Yeah, so how can small build strong brand presence? I mean, you can try guerrilla marketing, consistency, positioning your brand amongst bigger brands for representation. So, say for example, you are a sponsor, like you pull together every last marketing dollar you have and you invest that against some really big brands at, a pharmacy conference or a health and fitness conference. That will elevate your brand quite a bit by just positioning it alongside other brands with authority. So you can be really tactical with your budget usage. But yeah, I think just being strategic around, what channels are going to get you the most impact. But yeah, there is definitely always going to be a bigger competitor.
Well, that's right, unfortunately. But I think that's sometimes the great part about even things like with your meta marketing and so on, because you can control your spend and test, and then change depending on what you want to do as well. So another one here. We've got about a couple of minutes left before we look to wrap up. It was interesting to learn that Emma is very direct and to the point in her approach. I was curious to know, do you follow the same tone in your marketing communications and messaging through your usual channels?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I am direct and efficient, and I feel very confident on the areas that I can speak about. So look, if you meet me personally and follow me across socials, I am very direct, and I'm very confident when I'm sharing different pieces of advice, or I'm also, will caveat if I don't know something. I'm different to Excelerate marketing, in the sense of I run the business, I'm director of the business, I'm very much involved in all the day-to-day operations. But Excelerate marketing is a much bigger and broader business and services much, bigger and broader clients than at first conversation with me. So we've got to be positioned as a company, and also the intent behind our communications is broader education. We've got a 1 hour fast-paced masterclass. I'm being direct because I need to get across as much content and insights as possible. On social media, I don't need to be as pushy, and I don't need to be as direct with that particular approach, because people are consuming that content when it's suitable for them. I'm speaking in this way because we've got 40, 50 people on this who want to get the value. So That's the reason behind my directness. Yes, I am a direct person. We've been told that before. It's not new to me by any means. But on our marketing channels for Excelerate Marketing, our tone is, I would say, a bit softer because we're trying to be educational and informative and also inclusive to the broader business. Whether we're actually going to be able to engage with them and work with them, we don't work with every business, but our advice could still be applicable to a broader audience.
Got a quick one here from Dom before we wrap up. Podcasting versus short 1 to 4 minute quality videos. Any feedback on what works better for getting known as specialists?
I mean, do a podcast and then cut it into 1 to 4 minute videos and do 20 of them. I always value, the efficiency in that process is, creating a longer form piece of content is great. The risk is if it's not structured, you waffle on and lose the point and the value. So if you personally work better being asked one question and can film that in 60 seconds, then do a couple of those videos. Whereas you like and feel more comfortable in a conversational approach, sitting on a couch with someone else, then filming that podcast. So I would say it's really specific to the person, the resources that you have, because cutting lots of videos, you probably want to engage, a professional and someone who can do that on scale and have good production quality. So it's really down to your resource capability and your preference of how you're going to be able to speak and create impact in that video.
It's a good point. And just to add one thing to that as well, Dom, sometimes a podcast can be auditory only and there's no visual. At the moment, this is live. You guys are watching every single thing we do. If we muck up, if we say something wrong, it's totally live, where you could record a podcast and you can edit that as well. So, and sometimes people are not as comfortable in front of the camera as maybe Emma or I. So you've got the ability to create confidence by sitting back on the sofa and just having a chat. I know if I look at this maybe 6 or 7 years ago, that's how I started. So I've got a podcast channel called Talking Numbers, and we broke out from accounting to financial advising to real estate to all sorts of different, but it was all about talking numbers, purely auditory. And at that stage, it was free. It was a Spotify. Sorry, it got bought out by Spotify.
Oh, wow.
And it was easy just to bang. It went straight out to Spotify. So you didn't have to touch it and it was free. So there's some really good tools out there, I suppose, that again, you can research. And that's, if you're going to start off, I think that's a good thing to do as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. I think before we wrap up, I think there was a couple more questions there, but it's just gone.
I tried. Yeah.
So, look, thank you so much. Do you have any final comments before we look to wrap up?
I mean, happy Easter, everyone. This is probably posted after Easter, but for those who have been, putting their foot on the pedal and, have been pushing their businesses, I'll just speak, broadly, it's tough out there. And, there's a lot of things that you can do to move the needle with your business, but I would just say, to everyone who has a business or in business and, they're pushing hard and these short weeks throw them, I commend you. I'm in the same boat as you. I am here to answer any questions post the webinar. You can reach me on LinkedIn, send me a message, book a time to chat. So, we're very approachable and, would love to talk to anyone who's looking to level up their marketing and put some structure behind it or tap into some new channels, do a podcast, we do it all. So, very much, working with business owners quite closely. I had a coffee with one this morning, probably a wine this afternoon. We're here to help. We're based in Sydney. We do travel to Sydney, Queensland and Melbourne. We catch up time to time when I'm in Melbourne. So yeah, to all the business owners out there who are pushing hard this year and the start of the year strong, well done to you. And if I could help you with your marketing, please let me know.
Yeah, well said. And if you reach out to Em, talk to her about that digital audit, because it's something that, again,
yes,
you can start talking to Emma about straight away about where do I sit with that, and she can go through an audit with you. And yes, if you're in Sydney, great. If you're not, that's okay. Do it remotely, do it over Zoom, do it over Teams, whatever you may be. So Em, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. I know we could be on here for another 2 or 3 hours, because I know there's so much when we get into it, we talk about it and we keep going, but thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Really
to all of you that have joined us, thanks again. Thanks for joining this wonderful masterclass. My next masterclass is on May 27. So that's my May masterclass. We're going to be talking about what is success and how can you achieve it. So May 27, 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. To all of you guys, again, happy Easter. Enjoy the Easter bunny, whatever it brings you. Hopefully not too much chocolate, but enjoy the break. I know we've got a couple of short weeks coming up, but certainly thanks for joining us and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks again, Em.
Thank you. See everyone.
See ya.